Hi, welcome back to Psalms today. We're at Psalm 116, and this is a part of the collection that's called the Egyptian Hallel, the Egyptian Praise Psalms. So from 113 to 118, and we'll mention that a couple of times as we go through these last three Psalms, because the Egyptian Hallel would have been used by Jesus and his disciples during the Last Supper. And with that in mind, it makes some of the content interesting, not just in terms of when it was written, but also when it was used. We'll come back to that. But let's look at 116. It begins with really introducing the themes that are going to come through the whole thing. It's really a praise psalm. It's praising God for deliverance from death. So let's just look at these first four verses. I love the Lord because he has heard my voice and my pleas for mercy, because he inclined his ear to me. Therefore I will call on him as long as I live. The snares of death encompassed me. The pangs of Sheol laid hold on me. I suffered distress and anguish. Then I called on the name of the Lord. O Lord, I pray, deliver my soul. And so there's the introduction of the concept that's going to come through the whole of this psalm. I'm living, but I could be dead. But God's delivered me from death, so while I'm living, I'm going to call out and praise the Lord. In the midst of the psalm, he kind of flags the fact that God is the only one that can be trusted, that humans cannot be trusted. But let's drop down further towards the end. We're going to find a verse that's probably quite familiar, but I want us to see it in its context. What shall I render to the Lord for all his benefits to me? I will lift up the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people. Cup of salvation is used in the Last Supper, in the Passover ritual, and just seeing that there makes my mind go not from kind of the 1,000 years before Christ, whenever this psalm was written, but to the time of Christ, when Psalm 116 would have been on the lips of Jesus the night before he died. And so in that context, there's a richness to this, but we'll see that especially in Psalm 118. In this psalm, though, original context, original setting, thinking of us, the threat of death brings a difference to the way we live. What shall I render to the Lord for all his benefits to me? There's this vow of praise, this commitment to live for him and to declare that I'm his. And so when we come to the end of the psalm, we get this probably most familiar verse. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. And this is a verse that you'll hear probably at every Christian funeral, because it's true, right? It's a statement of truth. But when we pluck it out and use it in the context of a funeral, the focus becomes the death. But in the context of this psalm, the focus is actually on the life, right? Because God cares deeply, because God carries us carefully, because God considers our death to be precious. Therefore, as we face death and cry out to him, and he delivers us from it, we should therefore live with a sense of that finality, but also with a sense of God's goodness permeating all aspects of our life. And so as you come to the end of the psalm, you'll notice the kind of language that is being spoken by this writer, who is not dead, right? He has been delivered. I am your servant. I will offer sacrifice of thanksgiving. I will call on the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows in the presence of all his people. Praise the Lord. And so take a look at Psalm 116. Look at that 15th verse. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. And maybe think about the implications of that for you, for living under the threat of death. We're in a world where death is all around us, where death is kind of a focus in some ways and kind of ignored in some ways. But we're not just a number. We're a saint. belonging to the Lord. And when we die, our death is precious to him. Therefore, while we live, let our lives be lives of praise, lives of declaration, of commitment, of service. It's kind of like Ecclesiastes, I suppose. Consider your death so that it will affect how you live. Well, that's Psalm 116. And see you next time for not just Psalm 117, but the center of the entire Bible. More about that next time.